Away. I think 7 days away from week 0, college football is back, and you kind of feel it getting closer and closer, and the excitement growing. So it's been good. We just finished up our fourth quarter of the off season. We talked about it all spring and all summer long, and the preseason camp was our final step to that. And during preseason camp, you're just trying to push players to grow every single day and create that growth. And the video we showed them this week was about a lobster, and obviously I knew about eating a lobster, but I didn't know much other than that about a lobster. But a lobster starts out as a small, little small thing in a shell, and then as it grows, it kind of finds confinement in that shell, and it kind of gets stressed out. There's no room to grow anymore, so it kind of gets rid of that shell and finds a bigger shell so it can grow and create bigger growth and more growth there. And when it's under that confinement, it's under pressure. Well, it does that and repeats that over and over until it continues to grow. And without stress, there is no growth there. If he just went to the doctor, if the lobster went to the doctor, it would, not have any stress. They'd give it a Valium or a Percocet, and it would have no growth. So we showed that to our players this week, and we just talked about time and stress is really time for growth. And they're going to have some, controversy or adversity this year throughout the season. We have it during camp, and we try to create that to have growth. So we showed it to our players. Thought that was really good. Of just each and every day, they did a really good job of attacking it. We were in camp for 3 weeks, and every single day it seemed like they came to work. They were ready to go at it, and they were getting better and better every single day. When I was walking off the field last night, one of our seniors, actually a local guy, Panda Askew, just said thank you. And I looked at Panda and said, thank you. I said, I kind of was just kind of curious, like, what for? He goes, well, it's my best fall camp ever. And he's a senior, so he obviously views it maybe differently than a freshman or a guy going through it for the first or second time. He said, I never got to a point in camp where I thought, man, I wish camp was over, or I'm not having a good time, or I'm not enjoying this. Because you made it fun, and, the staff made it fun. It was enjoyable. I thought we got better every single day. And, it kind of made me think about, just reflect on, I think I was 27, 28 years old, and I was interviewing for a head coach in high school job, and thankfully I didn't get it. And the principal asked me, he said, now how are you going to, I said something about making it fun, making football fun. He said, well, how are you going to make it fun? And I didn't have a really good answer, and back then. And as Panda said that to me, and I'm thinking, well, he had a good time. But what our staff is really doing to make it fun for our players and make it a good time and see growth at the same time is they just love our young men, and they serve them. And I think that's what, our jobs as coaches, or our jobs in the program is about, is loving each other, serving each other, and we're going to certainly continue to do that. We got a lot of work to do. We got a long ways to go, and we're going to continue to work every day. And I'm not sure how we're going to match up every single week against each opponent. You can think you're one thing, then you go into week 1 or week 2 or week 3, and you find exactly where you're at. The preseason, sometimes when you're going against yourself, you can't really measure that up. I think I heard Paul Johnson say one time, you don't know about your team till about week 4. But I do know this about our football team. I think I learned this through the preseason camp. They love practicing. They come to practice every single day, and they're ready to go to work. They love football. They love being Pirates. I think they enjoy, being here in East Carolina, being a Pirate, and most of all, they love each other. And lastly, they're going to play their tails off. So I think if we'll continue to do those things, love each other, they love ball, and they're going to play their tails off, we can grow on that every single week, whether it's week 1, week 2, week 3, and throughout the season, if we'll keep that same mindset and that same attack, that same attitude to it. So excited about that, and look forward to seeing these guys grow each and every single week, and obviously look forward to 12 days. So this time we'll open up for questions.
Anything surprising about your first fall camp this coming to an end?
I think we just did a few things differently, and I think we talked about it early in one of the media times there after practice. It's just the way they enjoy each other. Just hit on that, and just, at dinner we didn't have our cell phones, and you're just recreating some things that we used to take for granted. Used to, you'd go to preseason camp and you'd stick them all in a dorm room, and they all be in the same dorm. Well, when they're not playing football, they're back in the dorm with each other and hanging out and enjoying each other's company. So we kind of recreated that at dinner this year, just taking their cell phones away and just have some time for them to fellowship and enjoy each other. And I think that saw us grow closer as a unit and as a group. We guess we got a lot of things to improve on the field, but I think if you can start that as your foundation, you're in a good place to start out with.
I was just curious, coming out of the second scrimmage, what did you like? And I know it was a little different
Yeah.
as far as situational stuff, but what did you like, what did you not like?
Yeah, I think, you're going into a second scrimmage. You're doing the bulk of your work in the first. You're 13 days away or so from the first game. So you want to get good work in, but at the same time, you got to be cautious of making sure you're healthy for game one. You don't want to limp into game one. You want to get to the, as I heard a coach say, you want to get to the Kentucky Derby. Make sure you're healthy for that. And, it's our biggest game of the year because it's the next game, but you want to make sure you go into that thing healthy and fresh and just trying to make sure we did that in the scrimmage last night. At the same time, get our work in. I thought we did a really good job of getting our 2s and 3s work. Chasten Ditta is a true freshman quarterback who got here in January and shown like flashes that he can be the guy one day. And just really impressed with that. And some other guys got some good work and another session of tackling. Anytime you're out there in a game situation, tackling, blocking, and it forces you to stress and have that adversity and get better and grow. So we were able to simulate those things.
Coach, now that you start working on NC State, how do you, same thing with the Kentucky Derby, you got to get to the finish line of the game, but how do you keep those emotions in check?
I think it's the same focus, and just talking to our staff this morning is, we have an opponent now, and an opponent's not just the offense versus the defense every day or situation of the day. Now you have a true game one opponent that you're kind of focusing on, you're starting to break down and prepare for and look at and practice every single day. But at the same time, it's about what we do and how we approach the game and us taking care of business and make sure we play the game the right way, fast and physical. And that's where our focus has got to be on. I think in so many times in game one, early in the season, more teams lose games than they win games. And we got to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and we're playing the game the right way and we're preparing to play the game the right way.
Hey, Coach, Tom Shanahan, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Tom.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, in the old days, if there was a transfer, the kid usually had some kind of problem in his past. Now it's a completely different world.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how Caden fit in so quickly and then how now all of a sudden he's kind of the face or the program or at least established here?
Yeah, Caden Hauser, what an awesome young man. And I've said for over the last 8 months, he has really took a lot of ownership and leadership, and just leading from the front and doing those things and trying to, make sure he's not just playing the quarterback position, but being a leader for our football team and not just our offense. And just really proud of him. And as you mentioned, there's different ways in college football to navigate your career. And he started out in, Michigan State and transferred here. And year one was kind of getting his feet wet. And at the end of the season, we saw him really grow and produce there. And I look forward to the 25 season here and just, excited about him, not only what he's doing on the field, but what he's doing off the field as well.
Coach, you mentioned going into this week that you guys were going to treat it more like a game week. Obviously,
Yeah.
the older guys kind of is what it is. Do you feel like the young guys were able to grow and kind of figure out how game weeks ran?
Yeah, anytime that you can simulate game weeks throughout the off season, whether it be spring ball or preseason camp, I think is really good. And we did that this week with our practices, and then the last 2 days leading up to, day before a game, here's how practice looks. Here's how the meetings the day before the game looks. Here's how the hotel would look, and the day of the game. Here's how pregame meal would look. Here's how the walkthrough would look. All those things, flex, you're leading up to. That way you're not going into August 28th, and it's the first time, a guy coming from another program or a younger guy has been through that. Some of your older guys have been through that routine, but you want to make sure everybody on your football team, that's not what they're worried about. They're focused on their job, what they got to do to help us win a football game.
Coach, I had a question about revenue sharing. So can you talk about the importance of our fans really embracing that as far as the collectives going away?
Yeah.
And now that you guys, we have to have the players. It's a whole different world than what we grew up in.
Yeah, regardless of how you feel about the new landscape and how college football is evolving and changing, we all love to win, so we're all going to figure out the way to do that, and a big piece of that is revenue sharing, and I'm excited for our players that benefit from that, and I'm excited for our fan base, the way they're participating and being involved, and we got to continue to grow that. Our Purple and Gold Society is a big piece of that through the revenue sharing through the school, and I'm excited that we got over 20 staff members on our staff who are participating in that as well. So it's not just, the fans we're asking to do that or Pirate Nation we're asking to do that. Our coaches are involved. Our coaches are, a part of the process, and they want to be like right in the middle of it, and that shows you they're just invested in this thing, and it's important to them too. So it's a big piece of it. Once you get to this point, our players have done a really excellent job of not making that the main thing, and that's what I'm most, one of the most things I'm proud of them about is they don't make it about incentives or something outside. They keep it about ball, and they keep it about our locker room. And I think as long as you can do that and use that as secondary, then you're in the right place and the right mindset. Anytime that becomes the priority, then you better rethink your priorities. But our players have done an excellent job of just making football first, making each other first, and our team. And we talked about that early in camp. Camp was about two things, and really your season's about two things. Ball and team, and loving each other and growing your team and focusing on football. And that's what they've done. So just really proud of that, and I appreciate Pirate Nation for continuing to support, the Purple and Gold Society and Rev Share and NIL opportunities, and it helps us, bring talent and retain talent here through retention and those type of things, and looking forward to that growing as we go.
I'm sure you're tired of being asked about what you lost last year, but
Yeah.
a lot of personalities, but a lot of production, but the guys, Kyle Marker, you really trusted. I know he trusted you. Who's kind of taken over as the mouthpiece, maybe coach on the field on defense that you are putting your trust in?
Yeah, defensively, obviously you mentioned there's a lot of guys and personalities we've lost and big Tays. When you say personality, is the first one that comes on mind. And I miss those guys, love those guys, but each and every year is a new season, new year, new team. And, if I was talking about guys that I think, hey, are coaches on the field for us or are going to make some calls and kind of get us set and get us kind of calmed down and ready to play, just like Caton does on offense. Defensively, the guys I think of are our safeties. Jamarlee Riddle showed you as a true freshman last year that, if we had an all-freshman team, he would be right on there with the pick six and some things he was doing there late in the season. And, he's a quiet kid and a kid that's not going to say much off the field, but on the field between the lines, he's going to do a lot of talking. He's going to know the game. He's going to know all the checks. And then Tegan Wilk, a guy that's going into his 6th year of football, on the back end there, just does a really good job. He's always kind of been, for me, a coach on the field and continues to do that for us.
Just curious, with Tegan and Xavier McGarvey, bringing those guys back, and it's kind of college football now, but was there any hesitation on you guys then? Was it pretty quick, and how seamlessly have they fit back in?
A lot of guys, when I start talking about old stories in 21 or 22, a lot of them look at me kind of sideways. But I can look at Tegan and Zay, and they know exactly what I'm talking about, whether it's the Houston rain delay or the Marshall play or whatever it may be. But those two guys, it took them a little bit to kind of get phased back in, but they're right in the middle of the thick of it right now. And just really excited and happy for those two young men that they get to finish their career in a place they call home. And they know how special Dowdy Ficklin is and how special this fan base is. And they're excited to just be back as Pirates. And, the way they've took ownership of that defense and of our football team, I'm excited to lean on those guys this year.
Coach, we've talked a lot this fall camp about, quality over quantity when it comes to practice. Do you feel like at this point you have a healthier football team with that in mind?
Yeah, I think, we've done a really good job of just kind of making sure we get quality reps. And maybe that's in a little bit shorter time period, but making sure those reps are the same amount of teachable reps. I think you learn from repetition. And we've done that. And I think we've protected our football team from injury and keeping them fresh. Now, we got to get our legs back at us. Under us, we can see us, we're not as twitchy or moving around as good as we were on day one of camp. But you're never going to feel like you do before camp starts. But we got to take some time here this weekend and making sure we're kind of getting our legs back under us, recovery, treatment, those type of things. Make that a big focus. And, looking forward to those guys just getting back to full speed. And we'll do that over the next, 12 days. And should be exciting.
Coach, two of your returning starters for wide receiver with Yannick Smith and Ant as well. I mean, having those guys back and just the confidence you feel in them, the relationship they have with Caden, just how much does that build up your confidence in your offense?
Yeah, Yannick and Anthony both in New Jersey numbers, and excited to have those two back. And, we talk about last year, you can't take any plays from last year, whether it's a touchdown score, whether it's a defensive stop, whatever it may be. But what you can take from last year is your confidence. And I think you look at Yannick and Anthony and the confidence they've drawn from last year, from catches they've made, big plays in big games at key moments. you can see that confidence coming into camp. And I think Caden just being, having those guys back, and DeCirio Riles is another one that's been pretty special out there. And DeCirio, and I'll just kind of go on him for a minute, just we through camp, we broke things up, and different guys would get up in the room and talk, and he talked about effort. And we talk about our team wants to be based on an effort-based team. And we talk about, Rajay's run all the time. Well, what you don't see in Rajay's run, or what don't get enough credit, is DeCirio Riles is outrunning everybody down the field to make that final block and play with a great effort on that play. And he did that in the game. He did the FAU game. But that's just who DeCirio Riles is. He's a really good tight end. He catches the ball really well. He blocks really well. But the effort he plays with is contagious to our football team. So he's another one that's going to take those same experiences from last season and that same confidence from last season and bring it into this season. And I think just will be contagious to our football team as well.
Coach, every time I drive down Charles Boulevard, very excited to see the construction site for the indoor practice facility.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the progress of that and obviously the importance of this for your team and the program?
It makes you smile, doesn't it? I mean, just every time you drive down and you see those guys out there getting after it, and I think we talked about it earlier in the week, is just, how this community just kind of pulls together and becomes one and pulls in the same direction. It takes everybody. And those guys are out there at 7 a.m. in the morning going at it and doing something for our university, and then they're at 7:30 p.m. at night still working, and it's exciting. Sometimes you talk about, an indoor, you talk about, this project, but it doesn't really come to life until you start seeing the dirt move. And they've moved a ton of dirt out there, and I can't wait to see it, the structure go up this fall, and certainly looking to, and ahead to next season. I think, a couple Wednesdays ago, we had a practice. We planned for a night practice just because our first, 5 games, or could possibly be first 5 or 6 games are at night, could be all 6, depending on the BYU team. So we're trying to practice at night. Well, then all of a sudden you get weather, you kind of, gets washed. But if you have an indoor, you don't worry about any of those things. But it'll help you with that. It'll help you avoid some of the heat or lightness things. So it'll help us be a better football team, a better football program, not only from a recruiting standpoint to kind of compete with everybody else in our conference, but also help us, develop our players. So excited about it.
ECU one of the few in the conference that has the coach quarterback continuity from the previous year,
Yeah.
which is positive. But has it become tougher from a preparation standpoint with all the turnover with coaching and personnel to get ready for opponents?
Certainly. I mean, look at game 1. You have the same quarterback back, but you got a new coordinator on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. So you don't know exactly what you're getting. Game 2 is probably similar in some ways. Game 3, I know at Coastal they got a new coordinator. So there's different things that over college football. By the time you get into the season, game 5, game 6, it all kind of plays out. But early on in the season, you certainly just you're taking care of yourself and making sure you're prepared for anything that somebody could throw at you. But at the same time, it's more about what you do. And it's, in some ways it's like that every week. And you always respect your opponent, and prepare for them. But you make it more about yourself at the same time.
Coach, to go back when you were talking about DeCirio Riles, you
Yeah.
mentioned effort, and that word you've harped on a lot in late game situations compared to talent or skill. Just how essential is effort to East Carolina?
I talk to players all the time, like, people are going to turn on the TV on August 28th, and it's going to be a nationally televised game. And they're not going to talk about, the type of offense you are, spread, tempo, defensively, odd front, even front, whatever you do. Okay, they're going to talk about a couple things. They're going to talk about how hard you play and the effort you play with and your physicality. Those are the 2 things that, my mom knows very little about football and probably couldn't line up 11 people on the field or on the whiteboard, but she can tell you how hard we play or how physical we play. And that's the other one we hang our hat on is our energy. Mike Wright stood up in front of our room and talked about energy. And what makes Mike so special is he didn't talk about his energy. He talked about where his energy came from. And his energy coming from his teammates. And that joy that he saw, the energy they had was joy from himself. And I think that's really what our football program's about. And Mike's a perfect example of that, a young man that we brought in to add some depth in our quarterback room, but also add some seniority, and a guy that's been there. I think we have 29 seniors on our roster now that can add, you think we lost a lot, but now we have 29 guys that's going into their last season of eligibility at the college level that can help us grow and help us guide this thing.
Coach, I know you had relationships with other ECU head coaches before you took over, obviously. But now that you've been a head coach for almost a calendar year, what's it been like with like Coach Godwin and some of those other coaches? I've heard you say being intentional this fall camp, talking about that. But like, what's it been like just talking with those other coaches on campus?
Yeah, I think whether you're talking to Ruff McNeil, who was here previously, or I think Coach Godwin, we were hanging out in the office this week, and just sometimes it's just hanging out and chit-chatting, whether it's a guy on campus, a guy that's been here, or a former head coach somewhere else, or a head coach that's sitting somewhere else. And I think you're just having different conversations. When you're the DC, defense coordinator, you're calling your buddies up who are coordinators other places, and you're talking about third downs and how to get stops and how to get off the field. Well, as head coaches, you're doing the same thing, but you're just doing it from a how do we develop our team? How do we develop our program? How do we develop our culture? How can we grow our culture? And how to handle certain things. And that's been just those resources, Coach Godwin, Coach Schwartz, and so many others have helped me along the way just to bounce things off and, how do they do it and get some thoughts there to help our football program. So that's always been good for us.
Coach, you always hear the cliche of that coach is a guy that would run through a brick wall through. You have a great relationship with the players. What is that like, that dynamic that, like when you see hype videos, when you're out here at practice covering them, et cetera, you see how much they love you?
I think it starts, it's not about me or Blake Harrell. It's about our staff. I remember, back to last season, and I told our staff the night before, I said, hey, however we react to this thing and however we do things is how they're going to do it. And you see Coach Baker and our staff, and I just say, he's on the offensive side of the ball and it starts with him. But the energy they have for each other and the excitement they have for each other and love they have each other, that's where it starts. And it starts with those guys, and it kind of filters throughout. And then just, it's not only our football staff, it's our weight room, our training room, our equipment room. All those folks have the same mindset, the same thought process of, hey, we're all important, we all matter, and we all care about each other. And I think that's important. And, you start thinking about, the way we're going to play the game, the way we're going to do things. You think about 12 days, it gets more and more exciting, and that's pretty cool.
Coach, kind of going off that, you did such a good job mid-season last year with the house money mentality.
Yeah.
Can you try to bring that back this year, a little different circumstances, but at the same time, we're kind of underdogs going to the opener. Not many people are expecting y'all to do that much necessarily.
I think that's just how you got to play the game. Like hey, let's go turn loose. We got nothing to lose. Let's go, let it ride. And we got to have that mindset every single week. We got to have that approach every single week. I think if I start to get uptight or I start to get nervous, well, who's going to get uptight and nervous as well? Our staff. And if our staff does that, then their position rooms, and then our team is. So we got to have confidence. And I think the confidence starts with me. You don't want to have obviously an ego or take it over the top, but you got to have a level of confidence and laid back approach to it. You can't be so laid back that you're easygoing about everything, and obviously I'm not. But you got to have that mindset, and I think it goes to your play. Then you got to feel your team out. Each team's different. Maybe your team does play better if they're uptight, and I'm not sure ours would. But if they did, I think you got to adjust. I think I heard Coach Tomlin say this a couple weeks ago. You're here as coaches to be whatever your team needs you to be. And if your team needs you to be a certain way, you got to adjust and be that certain way. And obviously, right now, I think at least last season, our team needed us to be relaxed and be loose and go play freely, and we did that. And I think, we got to continue to do that. And it obviously fit Caton Hauser and our offense pretty well and our defense pretty well, so we'll continue to carry on that same mindset. I say you go 5-1. I say whatever time we're eating pregame meal or doing certain meetings or whatever we did at 5-1, we're certainly going to do that again. If it worked then, hopefully it worked now.
Coach, for years, I guess the goal with East Carolina was to win every game, go undefeated, win the conference, win the bowl. Now we can win a national championship.
Yeah.
Is that ever said by you in the locker room? Is the national the college football playoff discussed at all?
Cliff, I'm glad you got the last question. Hopefully you don't get the last basketball shot, or if we're playing horses, it's because you missed the last basketball shot. But, and I'm a little disappointed you're not wearing a Braves hat today too. But yeah, you focus on the process. We talked about that. You don't focus on the outcome. But we do have, we have a plan to win within our program, and that's just how we're going to win each and every single football game. But you also have team goals, and our team goals is pretty simple. Win the bowl game. win the bowl game, you got to have a winning season, okay? And that's where it starts, and I think that's, as you spoke about there. The other one is protect Dowdy-Ficklin Stadium, win your home games, and that's a special place. And as I've mentioned before, what makes Dowdy-Ficklin special is the fans and Pirate Nation packing that thing out. And I told our players, beyond that, it's how hard they play in there. And then thirdly is win the conference championship. And you know, in today's college football, the way it's set up, if you can win the American, you have a chance to go to the college football playoffs. There was 3 teams, I think three teams in this league last year that had 10-plus wins. 4 teams in this league last year that won P4 bowl games. So certainly our conference is going to get the recognition. If you look at how many P4 teams are within the American Conference schedule this year, there's a bunch. So I'm rooting and pulling for the other American teams, you know, the first 4 weeks. And then when we start playing them, I won't be pulling for them. But, you know, I think that just gives strength and value to our conference and will help us down the road to reach a goal as far as if you win the conference and, you know, moving on to the next step. And the American's certainly worthy of that. And in my thought, you got a lot of good coaches in this league and a lot of talent in this league that can show they belong and they're able to play with anybody. So,
Coach, thank you for your time today.
yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all.